Greetings, my brothers and sisters. Sending gratitude to all of you who are joining in today to accompany us down the rabbit hole of self-exploration through plant medicines. My name is Ryan Sprague, and I'm here to tell you that your frequency is now set and tuned to explore psychedelic medicines and the impact they've made among the countless psychonauts exploring the last true frontier. Buy a ticket and take the ride with me as we get true first-hand accounts of the experiences, benefits, risks, and transformations taking place within the ever-expanding world of psychedelic medicines on This One Time on Psychedelics. One of the primary reasons I named my business Highly Optimized is due to the fact that I am totally, ridiculously obsessed with continually asking myself what I am capable of in my physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual aspects of life. As such, I have been long fascinated by individuals that have a similar interest in asking this question of themselves, and have found that by connecting with them, I am able to open up new possibilities and continue creating the highest quality of life possible for myself. In today's episode, we have a very special guest coming in to chat about subjects such as how our brain works with and without drugs, mental health challenges and how to solve them in today's world, the future of mental health wellness, and why we should not be afraid of nootropics. So, please give me a big hand in welcoming Mark, Mr. Noots Effinger, to the show. Mark, my man, what is up? So good to have you here.
Can I start with you? You successfully channeled Hamilton Morris just now, just so you know.
Dude, yes. That is a huge compliment, man. So thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Guys, as soon as Mark hopped on the screen, I realized we were soul brothers. You know, there's a certain energy. My buddy Jason, who I'm actually hopping on the call with him at the top of the hour, but he calls it the spirit of the puppy, right? Just like electrify with energy. We have a ton of fun. I could tell the second I got on with you, I'm like, this guy, we're soul brothers, man.
That's awesome. Well, yeah. Let's get into it. So where do you want to start, brother?
Oh, dude. So where I always like to start these is like, what got you interested in psychedelics, right? Of course, you're the Nootropics guy. We're going to get into that. But like, being is how we have this podcast named This One Time on Psychedelics. I'd love to know, like, what got you around just saying yes every once in a while instead of just saying no, right? I'm a big fan of, disempowering the Nancy Reagan approach to taking drugs. And so how did you move around that? And, we can kind of more over into that into, where you're at now with psychedelics and nootropics and everything as well. We'll dive into.
I love it. Neurotropics are, for the last 14 years, they've been my domain. And so, and that's all about cognitive performance enhancement and being able to dial in whatever state you want to operate at. So not too different necessarily than psychedelics, like dialing in states and exploring, getting out of your ego and getting into the capacity and the unfulfilled and unlimited capacity of the mind and body, spirit, right? So mine started when I was 16. Of course, where everyone started.
Yep.
And it's so funny. It's so funny because I was at Sprague High School, and
wow, that's a synchronicity, man. Holy shit! I didn't know I owned a high school. I'll have to figure out, what my royalties are for that.
Yeah. Exactly. So, my best friend Toilet, Steve Johnson, and I discovered that psilocybin was growing on the football field because they didn't kill all the stuff back then. This is back in the 70s, man. And so, yep. And so we got a 13-gallon bag of fresh, golden teachers and filled up a bag and then brought them in, and I put them on a hamburger. I made a hamburger. So funny because I looked over at my tennis coach, who was the dean of boys. His name was Don Dagg. And I said, and I had this hamburger in my hand that was loaded with shrooms. And I said, hey, Don, you want a bite? And he goes, nah, Effinger, it's probably loaded with drugs.
You're like, wow, that guy gets it.
So great. Yeah. So anyhow, so I did come on. I came on during shop class, which was an hour and a half later. And my pants got up and walked away. We were doing a projection. It was an expansion of a small engine. So they were showing a small engine on screen, describing all the parts, how carburetors worked, how the compression of the pistons worked and rods and all that stuff. And my pants got up and walked away. So at that point, I knew that maybe the mushrooms had hit. So I snuck out of the room in the dark. I snuck out of the room. Of course, the first thing on my mind was I got to go hit up my girlfriend who was a cheerleader. I went to her room, her class, knocked on the door, banged on the door, and said, "You got to get her. She's got to come out now. Oh, really important." And then just took her over to my house, which is a couple blocks away, and made a whole loaf of cinnamon toast. So we made a loaf of toast, buttered it, put cinnamon sugar on it, put it in a little box, brought it to school, knocked on doors, and sold cinnamon toast door to door inside the school. So,
wow.
That was my first experience, bro.
Dude, that is next level, man.
It was great. So I had a number, we had a number of those experiences, and I found that it was one of the things I loved about it was the one thing, like I had quit smoking weed. I started smoking weed in 5th to 7th grade, quit in 7th grade because my big brother told me he quit. He just didn't like seeing me high all the time. And then picked it up again as a sophomore in high school at the end of my sophomore year. And then of course that led to everything else. And, trying to get in with the cool kids. Cause I was not a cool kid. And,
you had cinnamon toast though. I don't know. You might've been cooler than you think.
Come on, man. Exactly. But I got to play. I was a competitive tennis player, and I went to state. And during my district finals, doubles, I'd already won singles on doubles. I took somewhere around, it was between an 1/8 and a 1/4 ounce of those golden teachers, and I came on in the 3rd set of the match. And we were down. We were. If they would have won the next couple of points, it would have been over for us. The mushrooms came on. I had a yes tune that was 7/8 time signature going through my head. So, and my logic at the time, you know how your logic gets a little bit maybe distorted during these events, is logic was they were listening to 2/4 disco, 3/4 country, or 4/4 rock. And I was listening to 7/8 times. There's no way they were going to catch me. Prog rock.
Sounds like good logic to me, man. It makes sense.
Right? Yeah. It changed my game. I hit a ball behind my back. My doubles partner lofted a ball short. The two guys on the other side of the net from Jesuit, which is like these are the guys that had all the money. They grew up playing tennis. I was the scrapper kid that played because I paid for my lessons by babysitting the tennis pro's son, that kind of thing, right? Like I was, and I won that point. I broke my racket. I didn't care about my racket anymore. I just kept playing, and then won district, and then went on to play state. So it was this really incredible event of going, oh crap, my head, my executive function of my head has blocked me from my ultimate performance. And once I got out of that and just got into flow state, right, Kotler 101, everything changed. So that became a pretty important thing. So now we fast forward, and Neurotropics were another way. First, I wanted to help people get off of drugs because my wife died of an oxycodone overdose, and I wanted to not have people go through that, right? As hopefully profound as that was, what I found was that if you had your wits about you and you weren't necessarily stoned out of your mind, that nootropics could get you into a performance state that was so positive, so good, so comfortable, and so intense in good ways, right? Not intense like you're grinding your teeth on Molly or you're doing something like that, but intense like right, yeah.
That's a different experience.
Yeah, you know that one. Yeah, it's great, except you got your dental bills go through the roof. Yeah. And so so Noots became a really great way to be able to explore the levels of cognitive performance. And before that, I don't know if you can see this, anybody. So this is called Effiger. This was the #1 brainstorming software in the world, and I was the co-founder of this company with the founder of Century 21 Real Estate. So these people, the people that bought my software, were my first beta customers of my wetware. the Neurotropics. Wow. And yeah, so it was great. So that's kind of the short story of we did a trip report and a little bit about Neurotropics and how they affect. I mean, here's the deal. You ready? I don't know if you can see.
Yes. Oh yeah. Hey everybody, I hope you're enjoying the show. I wanted to take a quick moment to let you all know that the doors are officially open for the Conscious Cannabis Collective. And as such, this is the last week you can sign up and receive all of the bonuses we're currently including. This is the last time I will be personally onboarding those of you who sign up with a complimentary one-on-one session, and you'll have the ability to get the Grow with Cannabis course for free during this limited time. For more info on how you can take advantage of this offer, head down to the show notes for this episode and secure your spot today, as we only have so many spots left and they are filling up quickly. Now back to the show. Yes, I love that. No bad days. I love that, man. Dude, I mean, you have the best word ever in there, optimized, right? That's why I put it in part of my business, right? Like, it's literally one of my favorite words of all time because it really describes everything that I'm about, right? And that's why I'm so fascinated with nootropics and psychedelics, because very similar to you, psychedelics I found are amazing, but they're not that great at being able to do regularly, right? Like, unless you want to be a burnout, right? Unless you want to have some challenges happen.
Yeah, we all know that guy.
Exactly.
We all know the dude, right?
Yeah, exactly. The dude in real life. And so, like, you could argue microdosing, you could do more frequently, but honestly, my soul has given me the message of like, these things can be amazing, but at this point in my life, I like being here. Like, I like being in my life. I love my life, right? And so, like, I still have some journeys here and there, which is obviously why I do this podcast. Cannabis is one of my biggest medicines that I interact with a few times a month, as a tool for self-awareness, because I find that it can really affect my day-to-day life in a positive way. But nootropics, I've found that nootropics are that way in which you can experiment with something every single day that allows, like you were saying, your executive functioning to get better, allows your day-to-day life to get better. And, one of the questions I have for you is like, this is a personal question that I'm just curious of, is that, one of the things that I love is kratom or kratom, right? It's again, like tomato.
Yeah. Huge.
How does like kratom or kratom, whatever way you want to pronounce it, how does that fit into the realm of nootropics, right? Are they same? Are they different? Tell me a little bit about that, because I'm just genuinely curious. Guys, this is a selfish question, but I'm asking it anyway.
I love it. So I'm by the way, I'm a huge advocate of kratom. Again, we're back to Hamilton Morris land, aren't we?
Yes, we are, man. He's gonna have to get longer hair, but other than that.
Right. Yeah. Too funny. So I'm a huge advocate. I built a product called Kratom Kick that I don't know if we'll ever be able to release it, just because kratom is such a dicey thing legally, right? It goes back and forth.
Yeah.
But OPMS, I worked with the founder of OPMS and made a product that made it so that you did not build tolerance to kratom. So that you could take, if you were a 3 grammer, you could stay at 3 grams and not have to go up to 30 grams in 2 or 3 weeks to try to get the same buzz on, and or to cure the, to heal pain, or to beat their depression, or to get focus, or whatever happened to be your strain's outcome. So I built that, and that's really where the kind of convergence of nootropics and kratom can happen, but. The good part of kratom is I think that it is significantly safer than like what my wife experienced on opiates, right?
100%.
And yeah. There's no Sackler involved in the industry right now. So, right. We're not going to get with this.
Yes.
That's the good part. The other good part is that with the different strains, you can have baseline elements of a certain experience, and then you can just capitalize on it. You go, okay, I want more focus. I'm going to get some green. Right. I want more of this. I'm going to get some white. Right. And so you can play with those. So I've also worked with the guy that created the biggest book of testimonials from kratom. He's got over 2,000 testimonials, and really, really neat guy who's, his life was changed by it. Wow. Here's the downside, as we all know. And again, everything has these downsides. Neurotropics don't have these because we don't have an LD50, and we're not plugging receptors. We're actually exciting receptors, and we're doing precursors. the way that we formulate our stuff is we do precursors to the neurotransmitters, and then we do signaling molecules that encourage the neurotransmitters and the neurochemicals to flow. So instead of going, we're going to bang you with just that neurochemical, we say, here's the precursor to that neurochemical. Here's some flow agents, right? Here's some things that are going to help support it, a symphony of different solutions that are going to support it. And then here's a signaling molecule that says, hey, can you tell your brain that you've got enough, as much dopamine as you want? You can go use some if you want, right? And so it'll create the dopamine in real time. So that does a thing called, that upregulates the receptors and upregulates the neurochemical processes, the enzymatic processes that happen in the brain to create the specific neurochemicals and get them across the synapse. With kratom, one of the downsides can be is that you can do receptor saturation, right? The opiate receptor saturation, which then encourages more use, which then can encourage abuse. I'm not saying that happens all the time. I'm just saying that the difference is it has the potential to downregulate receptors because we're dealing with the opiate receptor, which has so much of that potential.
Yes.
That said, God, give me that any day. If I would have had kratom available when my wife got her first oxycodone after giving a home birth of all things, I don't think that she would be, I don't think she'd be gone today. So
yeah,
there we go. That's my take on that.
Oh, thank you for your take on it, because, I found for me, I've always been puzzled by people that find themselves addicted to kratom. And maybe it's just because I've, been through nicotine addiction before and things like that, that for me anyway, in my personal experience of life, were much harder to kick. Yeah. And, with kratom, when I first found it, I was working at a dispensary and, I was there, of course, being the holistic health guy. My buddy was like, hey, have you ever tried this? And I was like, no. And so here I am standing on my feet 10 hours a day, talking to a lot of very sick people, that, a lot of them were energy takers, not energy givers. And so I take some of this kratom, I take about 1 gram, and all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, like I feel amazing. Now I'm excited to talk to these, energy takers and just give them any information they need. And so that was about 5 years ago. And since then, the most I've ever taken in a day is 3 grams. And then I go online and I see these people eating, I saw one guy eating 100 grams a day. And I'm just like, how? Like there was one time where I was driving back from a music festival and we had obviously been partying for about 5 days. So we were pretty tired. And so I decided to eat some kratom just straight up in powder form and put it into water. Normally I make capsules with it so I can measure it and yada, yada. So I don't know what I was thinking, but I just decided, screw it. I'm going to throw a bunch in there and just chug it on the way home. And so it was a 16-hour drive. My shift of driving was from midnight to 5 in the morning. So I take, I don't know, probably around 10 grams of kratom. It was a good amount of kratom in this bottle. And then in about 4 hours after that, we stopped at a gas station and I decided to take some more kratom. So I took probably like another 2 or 3 grams and everything was fine. I had a great time. It wasn't like anything, insane in terms of effect, but it just got me what I needed. And at 5 in the morning, I stopped driving. My buddy switched into the driver's seat. I get into the passenger seat. I start looking at my phone. And about 30 minutes into it, I just start feeling this uncomfortable feeling. I'm like, what the hell is this, right? Then I start getting a headache. Then it just starts ramping up so quickly. And before I knew it, I had projectile vomited all over the car, right? And so I don't know if it was from that experience, but after that, I learned my lesson. And I learned to respect the medicine, right? Which, of course, with any psychedelics or anything that we get into, there's usually that one opportunity for us to learn to respect the medicine. And ever since then, I've been fascinated by it. I interact with it for podcasts like this and things like that, because it really, to me, it works similar, like same to what a nootropic does, right? It helps focus, it can help attention, things like that. I've never really had to use it for pain relief, thank goodness. My body feels pretty good these days, but normally I stick with the white strains. I really found the white Bali is amazing, but one of the things I'm curious on is you were talking about the product that you had created that can stop dependency and stop these kind of things. One of the ones that I had heard about that does that is agmatine. Have you ever heard of agmatine before? Oh, is that it right there?
It's actually great. So this is a GABA receptor agonist. So we call this.
You got all the tricks, man.
Zamner juice.
I love this.
Yeah,
I tried that one. That's one of the ones I tried.
Oh, good.
Yep,
love it. Well, I'll get you some more. You need some more. And we're doing an upgrade on the formula that I think you're going to love. Agmatine is great. It is agmatine is very well known and liked. If you go to Erowid or you go into any of the forums around it, it's a fantastic solution. And a lot of bodybuilders have been using it for years.
Yeah.
So bodybuilders are kind of the original biohackers. And so you find a lot of these things, right, that you and I might be tripping on. They're going, and they're looking at us like, you guys are such lightweights.
We've been putting way crazier stuff in our bodies for years.
That's great. And it's, that's the thing with amino acids are so incredibly valuable. One is, whether it's unique to your body or it's one that you need exogenous input, is they have a really beautiful resolution with the body and the brain, in the fact that it's very difficult to overdo them to any huge extent. Plus, your body's going to clear it very quickly. It's going to get into stasis really quickly. It's going to get into balance. And what many people find is that when they actually do a full spectrum of amino acids or individual amino acids at specific times, they get this really incredible feeling of, oh my God, this is how I'm supposed to feel. Right. And then that becomes the basis for change for them. They go, oh, if I can feel like this, like for me in 1993, I went to a bed and breakfast owned by an NDMD. Okay. Cool guy. Dr. Kelly. Big shout out. And this 70-year-old man greets me in the corridor of he lived in this old ranch house that he blew out all of the outer sides with sunroom. So the whole, it's an L-shaped house. All of it was sun. It was so beautiful. And then all of the beams inside the house were hand carved, just wood. So they just basically cut a tree, cut it to length, carved off the bark and polished it, and then ran wiring through it or whatever. And so the whole house was kept up with it. It's really a neat place, Coyote Ridge Ranch. And I'm going there and I'm completely burned out. I've been running, I think I had my fourth technology company or fifth. I had my fifth company that I was running. And I was trying to run multiples. You know how when you think that you're indomitable, you're young.
Oh, yeah.
And you're left.
I feel attacked.
Right. I could always outwork everybody when I was in my, early 20s. Why is it when I hit 30, I'm starting to lag behind?
Yes.
And he just held my hand. He looked at me in the eyes and he asked me questions while we're walking through this beautiful little pond area. And then he just stands there for a second. He looks at me and he goes, you know what, Mark? I think you might be hypothyroid. And it was such a, like, what do you mean? And he goes, we'll find out. Well, because I was there for 4 days, right? So every morning he took my basal metabolic temperature every morning, before, right when I woke up. And then we did some blood tests and some other, and what a life changer. And that one event took me from a physiological, neurological crisis. I was in really bad shape to literally 6 months later feeling superhuman and actually performing at superhuman levels just by getting my body in balance again with thyroid, right? With sunlight, with training again, working out again, and oxygen therapy. And, all HIIT. I didn't know what HIIT was before, high intensity interval training, and doing, stretching, like doing yoga, like stretching. I'm going, what is this stuff? I'm a brute force bodybuilder. We don't do that stuff.
That's so funny, man.
I think that's where we're coming from, right? Is that we all want to have this experience of superhuman, and we actually have built a spectrum called sick to superhuman. And it's a definition of where you're at physiologically, neurologically, spiritually, right? So there's sick, right? And then we all know what that is, right? You're obviously not able to perform. Something is clinically and chronically wrong, and you're trying to live in it, but you're not doing very well. Then you've got suboptimal. Suboptimal is that space that a lot of us have, maybe even once a day or once a week, where you wake up on the wrong side of the bed. You maybe ate wrong the night before, or you tripped, or you got, you had a little bit too much to drink, or maybe the weed or whatever was a little bit more potent than you had anticipated, right? And you have that experience, and that's not necessarily what you really want. You want to have that experience, and the next morning you want to wake up shining and rock starish. So that's suboptimal. And then you got optimal, which is the place that most people feel on a day-to-day basis. They kind of feel what we consider optimal. You can operate for the 8 or 12 or 16 hours you got to do to service, your own needs, your business needs, your family needs, your love needs, right? Personal and those things, and self-care, whatever that looks like for you. But then you get super optimal. And those are those moments of surprise and delight when, like you and I, like we knew seconds into this meeting that we were going to have fun. This is going to be fun. We're going to be light on fire. We're going to be able to tell freaking awesome stories. And nobody's going to be stepping on each other in terms of, you can't do that here.
Yes.
So, right?
No rules. Yes.
That's the cool shit, bro. So that's the super optimal. And then here's where things got really exciting for me was, hold it. If I can get to super optimal, what are the things? What are the neurochemicals? What is the physical activity level? What is my overall health constraints? What's the level of sleep I need to have? Right? What's all of those factors together? What's the level of overall spiritual connectedness I need? What's my meditation practice? Like, what is that? How tuned do I have to be there? When do I have to wake up during the day? All of those little micro factors together. And then suddenly I go, all right, bro, we're going superhuman, right? And Tony Stark's suit just goes ding, 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 bolts on, and you just, right? So that's kind of where we're at now. So it's going from sick to superhuman and being honest with ourselves about where we're at today, knowing that that's a temporary state that we can change, and then getting the tools, like we've got these Nootopia products like Nectar X. That's what I've been drinking here, that allow you to kind of not have to wait for the optimum event to occur for you to feel great. I'm going to preload that state with the knowledge that this customized solution is going to get me into that awesome state. So Ryan and I can riff like badasses. And It's that kind of thing. It's predictability, it's optimization, and it's also changing our baseline over time so that our baseline changes so that eventually, whether I take that or not, I'm at a state that is much better than I might have been otherwise. Because I've cleaned up my brain, I've detoxed the cells, I've got my synapses firing well, my physiology's good, I'm spiritually grounded, I'm not doing stupid shit, right? And so all of that together, right? It all collides into this environment of awesome. And then I just need to kind of slide into it, quit pushing, quit forcing it, just slide into the awesome that's waiting for me, and then go explore that. Like, let it take me on its trip. Let it take me on this journey that my limited belief system wouldn't have supported if I said, no, it has to be just like this. Instead, going that, and which is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of part of the core of your message to your audience, which is, look, man, a lot of times our belief system is the thing that's keeping us from being as great or as free or as loving or as connected or as kind or as powerful as we truly are. I have had events in my life, Ryan, where I had these very specific outcomes, and if I didn't achieve those outcomes, then it sucked. The outcome was sucked, right?
Yes.
And then there's those moments where you go, and I've had these are profound, and this is Troy. I try to live here now. I try to be here now.
Yes.
is a great book. I try to be in a space where I believe and I trust. I don't want to sound too woo woo, but I trust the universe.
Go there, bro.
All right. The outcomes don't matter because I trust that great things happen to me on a daily basis, and I'm supportive of whatever the universe wants to have happen because I know on average it will be much better than the one that I could have defined myself. My belief system isn't big enough to hold whatever the universe is. So anyhow, I'm off my rant.
Mark, no, dude, I love this. This conversation is unbelievable. And you know what I love about that is that, for everyone listening, I can imagine that all of you have had this happen before, right? So maybe you're listening to us and you're going, well, I haven't felt like that in a while. Maybe I don't even remember what that feels like. Well, think about this, right? Say you really like someone, right? You have like a really big crush on someone. And then you find out from a little birdie, they also have a crush on you, right? That feeling you get right there, that's what Mark and I are talking about, being able to have constantly. Now, if you're in that feeling, right, you just found out your crush likes you and she's like, she or he is really like, they're like crushing on you hard, right? And you're like, oh shit, the possibilities start opening up. All this stuff starts happening, right? Then let's say you get a flat tire on the way home from work. How much does that flat tire affect that feeling? Nothing, right? But what happens is that if we're not able to hold that feeling without a result happening or without like an event happening, like that person liking us, well, then what happens is even the smallest little challenges in our day ruin our days. We allow them to ruin our days, right? And so like the question becomes, how do we allow ourselves, how do we set ourselves up for success in being able to hold that frequency? And at the same time, there are, so many different things we can do, breath work, meditating, all those things. But I know from firsthand experience, as well as you do, Mark, that like sometimes those things just don't work, right? Like sometimes those things don't get you to the place you're looking to get to. And so what I love about nootropics and, kratom and all of these things is that they are things we can lean on to, like you said, create that new baseline. And what I especially love about nootropics, aside from, as compared to kratom, is that they're more sustainable over time. Kratom is not something I take every day because I'm aware that for me, it's never been a dependent forming thing. It's just like, it won't work as well, And so for me, like, I think that we don't yet know, like, okay, put it this way, right? This is something I love diving into. So everyone listening to this show right now, including us, we have our favorite or highest vibrational moment that we've ever experienced, right? And so when we're thinking about a good feeling, we're pulling on that feeling that we know to be the best one we've experienced so far. But who's to say there's not an even better one, or maybe a 10 times better one, or 100x better one that we've yet to understand yet or yet to experience? And so if we do not understand that, right, and if we don't actually understand that we can create a better feeling for ourselves every single day, we end up having the expectation that the best feeling we can have is the one we've already felt. And that's what keeps us stuck in this challenge. And I think that might be, at least from my own anecdotal evidence here of what I've gone through, part of what the mental health crisis is right now. Again, it's a multifaceted thing, but there's a lot going on there that I think that might be an inclusion on, right? People are living in the past, right? Or living in the future based on their past, right? So I wish I could feel this way again in the future, right? Well, what if you could feel even better, right? Now you're limiting yourself to what you've experienced already. And so it's a fascinating topic, man. I love this stuff.
No, this is the magic. This is the magic. So let me share a quick story. Years ago, I had an investor in a piece of property, and I was living in that property at the time, and it was my favorite. It overlooked the Columbia River, beautiful. It was in what's called a flag lot, so the only people that could get to it had to know it was there, right? And it was a really beautiful. It was small, and it resonated with me. Whenever I drove up to it, I got a smile on my face. So it was my favorite place in the world. And it was a place that I celebrated because it was a byproduct of a number of events that happened that got me there. Like, you know what I mean? You kind of have these little dreams. When I was young, I delivered newspapers to that place. And I remember turning around in the driveway one day. It had a turnaround driveway, looking at the river, the Columbia River and Portland lights, and going, oh man, if I could ever have this kind of a life. And it was this beautiful thing. So I've got this investor, and she is livid. She does not like the way that this deal is going down. She's frustrated with her own life. She's screaming to the point that the neighbors are coming out and starting to look. It's a nice gated neighborhood and one of those things, right? And so it's embarrassing at this point, and it's weird. And I realized she was about 5'2" and maybe 105 pounds, and I'm 6'3" and 200, right? And I'm going, okay, I have three options here. I can overwhelm her because I'm bigger than her. I could take her and break her in half, right? I can dodge and weave. I can like play all kinds of word games and stuff and do a word salad her to death. But that's out of integrity. Or what I can do is I can literally lift above the situation. I can watch it, and I cannot care about the outcome. Mm-hmm. If she decides she wants the place, then so be it. That's because the universe has decided that that's a good move, and I should embrace that because the outcome of that will be better than something that I can get my little tiny pea brain around. And in the middle of this, so I literally am floating above it. I'm sure you've been in that state, right? Where you actually are watching yourself interacting with someone. And I'm watching that, and I see her go from screams to sobs, from sobs to giving me a big hug, from a big hug to a massive apology, to a, I'm sorry, my life just sucks, and you're the only one I can tell, and I don't know how to deal with it. And it was so amazing. And the outcome of that was, again, so much better than I could have wrapped my mind around. And in that realization was that aha moment of, holy shit, this isn't the only event like this that could be this special, this loving, this kind, this enormous. And I started adopting that as my philosophy, which was quit trying to, excuse my language, but quit trying to fucking control everything and start trying to just embrace what's going on and see what happens. Like, be willing to risk that if you aren't in control, maybe things could be as good or better than what you could control. And that's when things turned around. And frankly, that's why you and I are here right now. That's why you and I are speaking right now, because we never would have found each other if we were in our typical control events, right? Trying to orchestrate our fucking lives because we're so smart, and instead said, all right, I'm going to go play. Like, who introduced us? Was it Mike Bledsoe?
So it was Veda, actually. Veda. Funny story. This is actually a really funny story. So to talk about my own journey for a second, because it's very similar, right? Like, I worked in the cannabis industry for years, and I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life there. I've been a master cultivator for many years, studying organic regenerative agriculture, Korean natural farming, biodynamic farming, et cetera, et cetera. So I get into the industry.
Zach Bush,
and at first I love
Zach
it.
Bush.
Yes. And, the whole reason I got into the industry, no, you're good, is, my father and I got into cultivating together. He took a liking to, my relationship to cannabis because he saw that it helped my anxiety. And then when he got cancer, I actually helped him through end of life with RSO. And so I had this deep bond to the cannabis plant. I always have, and so I get into the industry. I worked there for 5 years. I end up, the company gets taken over by a corporation, right? We were a family-owned company. Now there's a corporation owning us. So it starts smelling like khakis and, office supplies in there real quick. So I'm like, I got to get the fuck out of here. Now, at this point, I was playing the victim. Why did this company have to take us over? But if it was any company other than the shitty company that took us over, it wouldn't have triggered me enough to get the fuck out of there, right? So in 2019, I leave. I start highly optimized. I have no clue what I'm doing, right? And then I get into coaching because I had a background in psychology. I end up, doing all this stuff. Now, at the meantime, I have these idols, right? Aubrey Marcus, Paul Chek, Kyle Kingsbury, all these people that I looked up to for years, right? So I'm, obviously listening to their podcasts, and then I leave the company. I start my own company. The pandemic hits. I spend 3 years just traveling, or 2 years just traveling and hanging out. I end up going out and sharing some of my cannabis with Paul. And he's like, oh my God, dude, I've never had cannabis like this. Like, have you ever thought about making a program all about this? This is your thing. And so all of a sudden, because I decided to share some cannabis with an idol of mine, he's now like, hey, come on my podcast, right? So me and him ended up forming a very close relationship. I ended up going to his 60th birthday party last year. And there I meet Wade, right? I meet Veda, and we end up shooting the shit and talking. I met a bunch of other people there too. Troy Casey, just everyone that's in Check Circle. Oh yeah. And I had a fucking
Paul's
blast.
Circle is great.
That's how they're the best, man, so that's how I met Wade and Veda. And then I asked, I connected with Veda and was like, oh, I'd love to interview Wade. She's like, hell yeah. Right. So I interviewed Wade, and then that was about a year ago. And then recently she hit me up and she was like, hey, I'd love to get Wade back on. Also, have you ever heard of Mr. Noots? And I was like, hell yeah, I have. And she's like, you should have him on, right? So because I'm building a course right now, the email got lost in translation. She is so good at keeping up, and I have to apologize to her because I'm like, I'm usually not this bad at answering emails, but she literally was just persistent, and now you're here, right? So like, that's literally how it happened. And I've been on my own surrender experiment, if you've ever read that book by Michael Singer, for the last 3 years, just saying yes to anything that makes my heart feel excited. And I have this motto that I live by. I didn't make it up, but I heard it somewhere. Whoever, made it gets credit, but this or something better. Right. So whenever anything happens that's really frustrating and I feel that tension come up, I just tell myself, okay, you know what? The universe must be making way for something even better. Right. And my girlfriend and I, we live in Boston. And so we were looking for a new apartment recently. apartment hunting's crazy, right? So we were going through all these things. It was exhausting. It was annoying. And then we surrendered and we were like, you know what? Maybe we'll just wait a couple months. I decided to look online one day. I found this one apartment. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I'm like, this is amazing. I sent it to her. She's like, oh my God, they're doing an open house. We go there. There's like 18 people that applied. So we get there last, right? And we end up shooting the shit with the realtors. Now, remember, I mentioned that my father passed away 7 years ago, right? So what I choose to believe is that nothing really ends, right? That he's still here with me, just not in a physical body.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking to the realtor's husband, I start talking about like, oh yeah, I know this area. I used to go to Boomers all the time, the sound system place. My dad had classic cars. He always got them done there. He's like, dude, my buddy Jason owned that place. I'm like, holy shit. He's like, yeah, I gave him the nickname Jabba in the 4th grade. I'm like, dude, no way. You got to tell him Harry Sprague's son says hello, right? So later on that night, we told them like, we really want this place. It was perfect for us. And so we hit them up and they're like, oh my God, Jason gave Ryan a raving review. My credit score was even way higher than I thought it was, right? So all of a sudden we go from being in 1-18 to 1-3, right? Then we mentioned to them like, hey, we'll pay a little more. We don't even care, right? So then we go down to out of 2, right? And I knew right away, the second we walked up the steps, I was like, we're getting this place. Well, a week later, we found out we got it. So we're moving in there January 1st. So it's like, that's how things work, right? But if we had settled for the apartments we had looked at, they were we were the only ones that applied, but we didn't really love it, right? If we had settled for that, we would have missed out on the opportunity for this or something better, So it's really, I mean, again, like, whatever we choose to believe, we'll find evidence for, but I much rather believe what we're talking about right now, this or something better, that we could never wrap our pea brains, like you said, around how fucking epic life could be if we just get ourselves out of the way for a little while. And so I'm with you, man. This is amazing.
I love that story. It parallels. I had the same experience in Newport Beach, California, after my wife and I separated. And it was literally the same thing. It's a room full of people. I'm the least likely to get this place. And one of the girls, one of the real estate agent women pulled me aside and said, that girl likes you. And it happened to be the girl that was going to be the decision maker on the deal. And so, it was like, yes. And we never dated or anything, but we became great friends and neighbors, and had a very protective, co-protective relationship with each other.
Yes.
Right. When she would get a shitty boyfriend, I'd be in there to save her. And so it's great. Isn't it amazing? So you're in Boston still?
Yeah, I'm in Boston still, man. Are you in Cali?
No, I'm in Newport Beach. I'm in Burlington, Iowa. I'm right on the Mississippi.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah. So we were in Portland. And speaking of which, I was one of the people that helped pass the law to make psilocybin legal in Oregon. So,
dude, my business partner lives in Oregon. He lives in Hood River. Yep. So,
one of my favorite. I used to head up there on a monthly basis. We'd go to Skamania Lodge. I would go climb Beacon Rock, go to Skamania Lodge, have something to eat, and then go to Hood River and go watch the windsurfers. Great stuff.
Oh, dude. That's awesome, man. Yeah, I've loved it out there. I've gone there. It's so funny, man. The synchronicities, right? Like, I really think that I've said this before, but it bears repeating. I really think that our experience of life is much more simple than our intellectual brains can make up, right? And so here's the analogy I give. It's almost like, and you'll get this because you're a bodybuilder, right? It's almost like we've skipped leg day, right? Where our minds are like a jacked upper body, just yoked out. And then our hearts, AKA like our ability to be present, is like just these skinny chicken legs, and so I tell everyone that in a paradoxical way, the simplest things are the hardest today, right? Because we're so far away from, I don't even want to say human nature because it's kind of cliche, but we're so far away from, like being able to be true to ourselves and being able to listen to that voice of wisdom within us that we've made everything so fucking complicated, but I really think that the universe is this simple, right? Whether you want to call it God, source, quantum, whatever you want to call it, it's just one big game of warmer, colder. Right. So the Bible states, which I'm not a religious person, but I know a good line when I hear it. If you want to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must first enter the mind of a child. Right. So what do kids do? Their imagination, they're full of awe, wonder, curiosity. Right. And a game they play a lot, warm or colder, right? And they're completely fucking entertained by it, right? And so I really think that synchronicity is the way of the big man upstairs or big person upstairs, whatever, playing a big game of warm or colder with us. Like, oh, you're getting synchronicities, you're getting warmer to something. What it is? Do you really want to know? Do you want to open your Christmas presents for Christmas morning, or do you want to be surprised, right? And so, like, it's just so funny, man. Like, I love this kind of stuff, man, because it just, again, it gives me more and more evidence that all I have to do is get myself out of the way long enough for magic to happen.
Oh, I fucking love it. I fucking love it. Yes. Well, it's so important. We, I, every time I think here, so speaking of Bible things. So my dad was a Trappist monk. My dad was a Trappist monk when he was young, 15 to 18 years old. So he lived in a monastery, did not speak. They had a very simple sign language, like pass potatoes, that kind of thing. And then they make bread, and then the bread was sold down in the town. They were literally on a mountaintop. They were a mile-high mountaintop. So that was my dad, right? So my dad eventually meets my mother. They have 6 children. I'm number 5 of 6. And one day we're coming back from Catholic Mass, and I tell my dad, I said, Dad, I don't get it. I'm 6 years old. So, Dad, I don't get it. The priest is speaking Latin. Nobody speaks Latin. He's saying things that I can't relate to, and I don't think I'm alone in that. Of course, I didn't use as eloquent a language as that. My dad gets down. Right. My dad gets down on his knee because my dad really connected. My dad was a huge, huge-hearted guy. Sounds like your dad had a lot of that as well. Mm-hmm. And he said, son, he goes, I don't know if God, whether it's a him or her or an it or a thing or a experience or whatever, but this I do know. He goes, after meditating and praying and reading the Bible, the scriptures, and singing Gregorian chants for 3 years and dedicating my life to God in that way, I don't think you could fit God in a book or on a pulpit. He goes, what would you like to do? And I said, I want to study something else. And he goes, great. Where do you want to start? I said, I've heard about Buddhism. He goes, great. Let's start there. And then my dad let me explore Buddhism and Taoism and TM and, all that stuff. And I think that one of the most powerful things we can do for those people around us is not only gain an understanding of what they believe, but also maybe tickle that thing in them that says, hold it, there's more. Like maybe there's more. And maybe that more is, maybe it's beyond what we can believe. You said something so profound earlier. So my wife dies, my kids and I, we moved to Blaine, Washington, which is right on the Canadian border. You go through Blaine to get to White Rock and Vancouver, BC. All right. So we moved there. We got a beautiful place. Thanks to David McGinnis, the founder of PR Web. We had done a deal there. And I would steal my daughter out of school once or twice a week. I would go into the school and I'd say, Livy, I got to get Livy. She's got an important thing she's got to go to. And that important thing was walking with me to the Red Caboose restaurant right on the shores of the ocean and having lunch with me, having our semiamu was her favorite, and listening to the old people tell stories of what it was like to be them and, what their lives are now. It was great. And one day we're walking across Interstate 5, and she says 2 things to me that just blew my mind. By the way, Livy Day is a rapper now. My daughter, Livy Day, is a rapper now. She goes by Renegade the Rapper.
That's
look her up. She's awesome.
Wow.
And yeah, she's awesome. And she works for us. She works for me as well. She's special operations.
That's so cool.
But yeah, she's cool, man. She goes,
Renegade Special Operations. That's the coolest name ever.
That's it, man, right? If you can have special operations, better make them renegade.
Yes, exactly. I'll take your special operations and raise you a renegade, please.
That's perfect, man. Yeah. Oh man. So she says, she goes, Dad, she goes, plug or trigger. I said, what do you mean plug or trigger? She goes, I was there when they pulled the plug on Mom because she didn't have control of anything anymore. She was brain dead and she was just bloated, laying on the table. She goes, don't you want to be able to pull the trigger instead of having somebody pull the plug? I said, yeah, I do. Yeah, I think that's a great way to go. Like fall into the universe, right? And then the other thing she said, which was kind of exactly what you said, was she goes, Mom, she goes, and this is my daughter's like 12 at the time. And she goes, the law of thermodynamics, right, is that energy is neither created nor destroyed. So she goes, mom isn't gone. She's just distributed. She's just all out here, and a bunch of her atoms are hanging out and they're talking to me at night, and she's showing up in my dreams, and she's not gone. She's just well distributed. And, you know, I thought, what a beautiful thing for her to say. One, it would just warm my heart. And the other is, isn't it true? You talk about your pop.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. It's 100%, man. You know, the way, like, I had this come to me in a medicine ceremony, that we should change out the word death, because I'm a huge language nerd, for expansion, right? Or expanded. So instead of dying, which is the process of going inward, right? And like contracting, it's expansion, right? Because really we're confined into this body when we're in this experience, but when we pass on, what I believe is we expand into everything. So yeah, I love this thread that you're going on.
No, this is funny because you know, I'm a word nerd as well, big time. Yeah. And when I was on a call with Paul Chek about a year ago, and he's going, hey Mark, he goes, let's not call it biohacking, like let's call it bioexpansion. And it was like, right?
Yes, dude.
Because right, we're not hacking it up. It's not some kind of a kung fu move. This is right. We're expanding our potential. We're expanding our brains. We're going into Nootopia. We're going to Nootopia.
Yes. Dude, I love that, man. You know, it's so cool. Mark, I literally feel like I could spend hours and hours on this call with you. I want to make sure that, you know, we didn't get to a couple of subjects. So guys, we're going to be doing round 2, probably up to round 11 and beyond in the wise words of Spinal Tap. You know, this goes to 11. But Mark, where can people find you? Where can they find your products, man? Like, you know, there's so much amazing stuff you're doing in the world and continue to do. And I want to make sure people know exactly where to find it, guys. I'm going to be having an affiliate link set up too. That'll be in the show notes when this episode is released. But Mark, where can they find your stuff, man? Where can they keep up to date on all the amazing stuff you're doing?
I love it. I love it. So if you come to Nootopia.com, you can kind of see us. And if you put in, if your audience enters Psychedelics 10, they can get an immediate 10% discount on Nootopia products. And also look for some special stuff happening there as well. One of the things I would love to do is, once you get moved in and situated in your place, I would love to have you out. We are building the ultimate laboratory. I've got a 24,000 square foot lab here in Burlington, Iowa, right on the Mississippi. We'll make sure that it's we pick you up from the airport, put you up for a weekend, biohack or bio-expand the shit out of you.
Oh, dude. You had me at bio-expand.
Yeah, I think we should do that. And I would love to show you some of the emerging technologies we're exploring. Everything from some really, really cool expanded red light therapy, and some other contact, microvolt contact therapies, to some of the Neurotropics that'll be released next year, and some stuff that you and I can only talk about offline because it's so incredibly weird.
Oh, man. Well, I mean, you have my attention, sir, on so many things, and I am so pumped to go out and do that. And Mark, I got one final question for you, man, that I ask everyone that comes on the podcast, which is this, right? Because with this podcast, you know, I'm not advocating for or against psychedelics. I'm just simply giving awareness, right? And people can do with this what they will. But as such, say someone listens to this episode and they're like, well, Mark and Ryan, it seems like it worked for them, right? They want to explore psychedelics in their own life. What is the one piece of advice you would give them to be able to allow them to use proper discernment in choosing whether or not psychedelics are right for them in their lives?
I would find somebody that's deeply experienced, that is truly loving, not somebody that's got an objective, a third or fourth or fifth directive that they're trying to accomplish. To be a mentor to you and a guide, and to have them with you during your trip experience. And the other is, when you're done with the experience, is don't try to put it on a rating of good or bad. Just embrace the event and kind of look at it as learning. If you do that, I've had when I was young, I've had trips that many said, man, that was brutal. And I said, oh no, but guess what happened? You can't believe what happened. And it was those kinds of things. I mean, things that would put you under. Find a good guide, enjoy the experience, embrace the experience. Don't just enjoy it, embrace it. And you'll get more out of it than anybody. There are things that will happen in your life that will be a direct result of that if you do it right. that are going to forever change your perspective in a positive way. So that would be my insight.
Wow. Spoken like a true wizard, my man. I love that. And wow, guys, I am continually amazed and in eternal gratitude of the conversations I am able to have on this show with individuals such as Mark, who are absolutely world-class at not only what they do, but also who they are. For those of you listening that resonated with this episode, I highly recommend you check out the show notes for this episode, where you will not only find all the best ways to learn more about Mark and contact him, but also find the link to purchase his products and receive a discount, like he said. And so, Mark, thank you so much once again for sharing your time, energy, and your wisdom with the listeners and I on the show today, for dedicating yourself to discovering how we can up-level our experience of life through nootropics and the understanding and knowledge behind them, and for doing the important work you're doing in the world to combat the mental health crisis and open up opportunities for people to be their own healers. And until next time, my brother, may your journey be smooth and full of light. Aho.
I love you, Ryan. Thank you, brother.
Love you too, man.
I'm so fortunate to have met you. Let's do it again.
Thank you.